The Room of Secrets. In one of New York's bustling streets, where the sound of cars and people fills the air, there is a very old hotel on the corner. Located on 42nd Street, it is a place everyone avoids. They say it's closed, but no one knows who visits it or who owns it. The windows are covered with heavy curtains, and the lights at the entrance flicker softly. The front door opens and closes occasionally, but no one seems to be inside. One stormy evening, 5 strangers arrived at the hotel, each in their own way, without knowing how they got there. They were complete strangers, yet they stepped into this dark and mysterious place, only to realize they had fallen into an inescapable trap. As they tried to make sense of their situation, a strange voice echoed through an unknown speaker. The voice said, "Welcome to the game of life and death. Here, each of you will face a challenge. If you succeed, you will survive. If you fail, you will pay the price." They had no choice but to follow the rules of the mysterious game, as everything was beyond their control. A group of 5 people woke up in a dark room. The space was tight and uncomfortable. There were no visible windows or doors. In the center of the room lay the body of a stranger. The sound of rain fell on the windows and seeped through the cracks. The first to wake up was James, a man in his 30s, who screamed in panic. "Where am I? What is happening here?" He looked around and saw others lying on the ground. "Are you okay?" James asked. Ellen, a woman in her late 20s, also woke up, glancing around quickly. "Who are we? And how did we get here?" she asked in a trembling voice as she tried to stand, but she felt dizzy. "I don't know, but we need to get out of here," replied Oscar, a middle-aged man wearing a suit. His face showed clear signs of worry. "But the body in the middle. Have you seen that?" asked Hannah, a young woman in sportswear, her face full of fear. At that moment, they heard a voice coming from a speaker in the dark corner of the room. "Welcome to the game of life and death. You will face challenges. Those who succeed will survive, and those who fail will die." James looked at everyone with worried eyes. "Is this a joke? Is one of us doing this?" Oscar replied, trying to appear calm. "I don't think so. Someone is controlling us. We're here for a reason. We must work together." Silence fell over the group for a moment as they all thought the same thing. How did they get here, and what was waiting for them? "Let's figure this out together," Ellen said as she moved cautiously toward the body. "We need to be careful. Maybe there are clues here." Oscar looked at the body and said cautiously, "If there are clues, we need to find them quickly. We don't know what this place is hiding." Hannah added, "Who is this person? Are they part of the game?" While they were discussing, another voice came from the speaker. "The first challenge begins now. Choose one person to pick up this key. If the right key is chosen, you will survive. If the wrong key is chosen, you will lose." James asked, "What does this game mean?" Oscar replied, "It seems like someone is controlling us. Maybe the key is the solution. But who will choose?" Ellen said hesitantly. Hannah spoke up. "None of us will survive if we hesitate. We need to work together. We're all in this together." "All right, let's go," James said as he stepped toward the key lying on the table. We can only escape if we choose wisely. After James picked up the key from the table in the dark room, everyone waited anxiously. The voice from the speaker silenced any further conversation. You have chosen the key, James. Now, it's time for the first challenge. The tension was palpable. The air felt heavy, charged with unease. Each person watched the others nervously. Had James made the right choice? What was going to happen next? What does this challenge even mean? Oscar muttered, glancing at James, who held the key tightly. I don't understand, Ellen said, shaking her head. The key, the voice. What does this person want from us? Suddenly, the front wall of the room began to move slowly, revealing a large screen. On it, a strange game appeared, the question challenge. A timer displayed only 30 seconds per question. Words flashed on the screen. Test your knowledge. The first question begins now. Succeed, and you will survive. Fail, and the consequences will be severe. James pointed to the screen, his voice uncertain. This can't be real, right? It's just a simple test. The consequences can't be that bad. But his tone betrayed his doubts, and it was clear he was growing uneasy. The speaker crackled again. First question, what is the capital of the United States? You have 30 seconds to answer. Oscar took a deep breath and quickly replied. Washington, D.C. It's Washington. The screen displayed a green check mark. Correct. Well done. You've passed the first test, the voice announced, almost mockingly, as if warning them that things were about to get harder. No one felt relieved. The first question had been easy, but what about the ones to come? What were the severe consequences the voice had mentioned? This is so strange, Ellen sighed. Will we ever get a chance to escape? The more questions we answer, the greater the risk. James tried to sound reassuring. Don't worry. We'll get through this. We'll find a way to survive. Before he could say more, the screen lit up with the next question. What happens when water freezes? Hannah, her eyes fixed on the screen, answered nervously. It turns into ice. Once again, the green check mark appeared. Correct. But the uneasy feeling in the room persisted. Oscar, attempting to calm the group, said, See? We can answer these questions. We just need to stay calm and work together. But it wasn't just the questions that unsettled them. The voice from the speaker seemed to be growing more ominous. The next challenge will be harder. If you fail, the consequences will be catastrophic, the voice warned. James, his tone determined, said, We have to be ready. We'll succeed, but we need to stay focused. The third question appeared on the screen. What is the next number in this sequence? 246_. Ellen quickly responded. 8. It's 8. But when the screen flashed incorrect, the group was stunned. Incorrect? How? James exclaimed, his face filled with disbelief. Ellen, breathing heavily, stammered. But I was sure. It was supposed to be 8. The speaker boomed. As I said, failure has consequences. Ellen, you must pay the price. Suddenly, the ground beneath them began to tremble, and the lights flickered erratically. Ellen's face was frozen in shock as the others stared at her. What does this mean? Hannah asked, glancing at the flickering lights. Then, without warning, Ellen's breathing grew rapid, her eyes wide with fear. The wall ahead of them began to move once more, revealing a small door leading to another room. If you want to survive, you must enter this room now. Your fate will be determined by luck, the voice commanded. Panic gripped the group. Would they be safe if they entered the room? Was another test waiting for them? Oscar looked at the others and said, "We have to stick together. We can't escape this place unless we work as a team." In a moment of unexpected resolve, James stepped forward and said firmly, "We won't let this person control us. We will survive, no matter what happens." In this chapter, the tension rises as the group faces their first challenge. Doubts, fear, and the mysterious rules of the game push the characters to their limits, setting the stage for the greater dangers to come. The group entered the room opened by the wall, but they had no idea where it led. It was dark, shrouded in shadows, and there was nothing in sight except a small box in the corner. As they stepped inside, the door slammed shut behind them, and the air grew thick and suffocating. They felt trapped in this new space. "What is this place?" Oscar asked, groping the dark walls, looking for any possible escape. "There's no other door. We're trapped," James said, scanning the room cautiously. Just then, the speaker blared to life again, and the voice echoed through the room. "Welcome to the next phase of the game. Don't think things will be easy. This time, you will face some difficult questions, and remember, if you fail, the price will be steep." "What does that mean?" Ellen wondered, her voice shaking with growing anxiety. "It seems like this person is enjoying torturing us," Oscar said cautiously, trying to keep his composure despite the rising tension. Hannah, standing in the far corner of the room, held her head in her hands as though trying to concentrate. "Are we answering questions again? Or solving puzzles?" she murmured weakly. James turned to her and said, "I think we don't have a choice. But there's something strange about all of this. This voice, it seems like it knows everything about us." Everyone felt uneasy. Every time the voice spoke, it felt as if the person behind the microphone wasn't just observing them, but controlling their every move, every word. Then, a screen appeared on the front wall of the room, but this time, it wasn't a simple question. The text read, "You will work together in this challenge. If you succeed, you will survive. But if you fail, the consequences, you cannot even imagine." Ellen, struggling to keep her composure, asked, "Work together? What does that even mean? Why can't we just be alone?" Oscar answered quickly, "Because it wants us to trust each other, or maybe so that we make mistakes." Finally, a question appeared on the screen. "Who among you thinks they know the whole truth? Who among you believes they know everything? Choose one person to answer." The group exchanged puzzled glances. The question was strange. Was it implying that they had to trust each other to decide who could answer? Or was there something hidden behind this? James, trying to keep things calm, said, Maybe we need to be honest with ourselves. Perhaps the answer is that we don't know anything about this person or this game. Suddenly, another voice from the speaker interrupted. James, do you think you know the truth? If you're right, you'll survive. If you're wrong, you will die. James felt his heart race. He knew that the answer he chose would determine his fate. The tension in the room was suffocating, and everyone watched his every move as if their lives depended on what he would say. I don't know the truth, James finally said quietly, admitting. But we're all here, and we need to work together. A green check mark appeared on the screen. Correct. You answered as you should. You will all survive, but the next phase will be more difficult. Oscar, rubbing his forehead, eyes closed, muttered. We're in trouble. This isn't just a test, it's a trap. And it seems like this person knows everything about us. The voice returned. The next test begins now. But remember, not everyone will be as lucky as James. Ellen said, we need to be careful. We don't know who this person is or how they can control everything here. Do we go? Oscar asked, glancing at the open door. There's no escape. We have to keep going, James said, stepping toward the door first, followed by the others. Before they entered, they heard the final words from the speaker. The next phase will be the hardest. But remember, death may be closer than you think. As they passed through the open door, they found themselves in a narrow, dark corridor, dimly lit by faint light just ahead of them. The place felt strange, as though they had entered another dimension, with walls wrapped in shifting shadows and the air thick with tension. The only sound was the echo of their footsteps, as if someone or something was watching them. We need to stay together, James said, trying to keep his composure. This game is getting more dangerous now. Suddenly, the voice from the speaker echoed through the hallway, its unsettling noise filling the air. Next phase, the deadly riddles. In this phase, you will face questions that require precise answers. If any of you fail, the consequences will be severe. Oscar sighed, trying to ease the tension. We're in deeper trouble now. Riddles? What does that even mean? In front of them, a giant screen appeared, and on it was written in bold letters. Question 1. What grows over time, but cannot be touched or seen? Ellen glanced at the screen, then at the rest of the group, looking troubled. Is this just a normal riddle? Or is it part of the game? James studied the question carefully. We need to think together. It seems like an easy answer, but nothing in this place is simple. Hannah added, her eyes focused on the screen. I think the answer is time. Time grows with each passing day, but we can't touch it or see it. The screen flickered, and a green check mark appeared with the word accepted. They all breathed a sigh of relief, but the tension in the air was still thick. We made it, but this is just the beginning, Oscar said, his eyes fixed on the screen, which now showed another question. Then another message appeared. Question 2. Where do endings meet? Ellen clutched her head, trying to concentrate. This one seems harder. Where do endings meet? Is it something physical or just an idea? James thought for a moment, then said, if it's a philosophical question, maybe the answer is a circle. because a circle has no beginning or end. Again, a green check mark appeared on the screen, but there was no time to relax. The voice from the speaker returned. You've completed the task, but the next phase is the most dangerous. Don't think about surviving only. Death is closer than you think. Suddenly, the corridor lit up, as if an invisible light source had appeared, illuminating the path ahead. They realized they had reached another door, locked with a massive lock that seemed to require something specific to open. Oscar touched the lock. We need something to open this door. Maybe there's something missing here. Hannah glanced around the surrounding walls. Perhaps there are clues or keys hidden in this room. Let's search carefully. They all began examining the area closely, touching the walls and floor, searching for anything that could help them open the locked door. At that moment, a new word appeared on the screen in front of them. New riddle. What is it that the more you take from it, the larger it becomes? Ellen whispered. That sounds like an old riddle. Is it a hole? If we take from it, it becomes larger. The green check mark appeared again, and the massive door suddenly unlocked. They were about to step through, but with each new door, the tension and anxiety grew. James pointed toward the open door. We've solved all the riddles, but what's next? Who is behind this? Oscar patted James on the shoulder. The questions will keep coming. We won't know the truth until we reach the end. They all stepped forward, crossing the illuminated doorway. With every step, they knew the unknown awaited them in the darkness, and the killer might be closer than they thought. When they entered the new room, the atmosphere was completely different. The room was larger compared to the previous ones, but it was filled with strange things, walls covered in large sheets of white paper, as if there were old drawings or notes on the walls. Dim light came from hanging lamps in the ceiling, casting an eerie, intense mood over the space. James looked around cautiously. This room doesn't feel like the others. Something's off here. As everyone examined the surroundings, another screen suddenly appeared on the wall and lit up. It displayed a message clearly. Phase 5, the killer decision. In this phase, you will have to make a decision. Not just any decision, but one that will determine your fate. In this room, there will only be one test. If you choose the right answer, you will all survive. If you fail, one person will lose their life. Ellen screamed, looking shocked and horrified. What? How can we choose? How can we decide someone's life? Oscar looked at James, his expression serious. We need to be careful. This feels like a serious test, but if one life is at risk, are we ready to make a choice? On the screen, a set of options appeared. Choose one among you to answer this question. What is the reason for your presence here? Is it fate? Or is it your choice? Are you here because you wish to survive? Or are you simply pieces in a bigger game? Hannah tried to stay calm. This isn't just a normal question. These are philosophical questions, but they hide something bigger, something terrifying. James spoke firmly. I think we need to think carefully. If our lives depend on just one answer, we must be cautious. They all looked at each other, each one wondering, who should answer? Who should bear the responsibility for the fate of them all? Their eyes were filled with doubt and worry, but none of them could escape this test. The answer was crucial. Oscar sighed, finally speaking. This might be the defining moment. We need to be honest. We have to decide who will answer this question. James, feeling the weight of the decision, said, each of us has an opinion. But we need to remember, we don't have much time. If we hesitate, the price could be too high. Then, suddenly, a new message appeared on the screen. The final choice. Do you think you can change your fate? Will you die for survival? Then, choose who will answer, for life is at stake. Everyone fell silent for a moment. It was the moment when one of them would decide everyone's fate. Ellen, trying to control her emotions, said, I'm willing to take the risk. I think James should answer. He's always been good at assessing situations. But Oscar disagreed. He said, no, I think Hannah is the most logical. She's noticed most of the details throughout this game. At that moment, everyone fell into deep thought. They knew that any choice could lead to loss or survival. James finally spoke, making his decision firmly. We'll do this together. We should choose a common answer. Because if we pick just one of us, the game might be over. Ellen took a deep breath. All right. Then we'll all choose the answer. We're here because of our choice, because we all wanted to survive. The voice in the room repeated itself. Are you sure about your answer? Because your choice will determine your fate. James stood tall, responding confidently. Yes, we're sure. A green check mark appeared on the screen. Correct answer. You will all survive. But remember, each phase holds greater danger. Suddenly, another door opened in the room, as if the game hadn't ended yet. But this time, everyone felt the struggle had become fiercer. They now knew that the challenges ahead could be deadly. But at least, they had succeeded in overcoming this critical moment. Oscar, stepping forward first, said, we won't let this person control us. We will keep moving forward, no matter the cost. James replied, yes, this game might get worse. But we must continue. If we stop, we lose. They all moved toward the open door, knowing that the fight for their lives had become even more complicated. They crossed through the new door, finding themselves in a completely different room. The room was almost empty, but what caught their attention was the long table in the center. On the table were 5 chairs, and all around the walls were words written in red. Trust is the key, beware of betrayal, not everything you see is true. Hannah whispered as she read the walls. Trust? What does that mean now? Do we need to trust each other? Or is one of us going to lose trust? James, standing next to the table, replied, this is another trap. They want us to doubt each other. We need to stay calm. Suddenly, the voice from the speaker sounded again, this time more sharply. Welcome to phase 6. In this phase, trust is everything. Each of you must sit in a chair. But remember, not all the chairs are safe. Only 3 will save you, and 2 will unleash an unknown fate. A deep sense of anxiety filled the room. Oscar stepped back. Wait, this is crazy. How can we know which chairs are safe? Ellen, staring at the chairs, said, Maybe there are signs? Maybe the chairs show something if we look closely. Everyone approached the chairs cautiously. They all appeared identical, with nothing to distinguish one from another. The atmosphere was thick with tension, and everyone glanced at each other nervously. James said, No point in stressing now. We have to choose. But let's think carefully. Is there anything in the room that can give us a clue? They all started to examine the walls and the table, searching for any symbols or signs that might help them. During this, Hannah spoke as though she had noticed something. Wait. The words on the wall. Trust is the key. What if the solution is to trust each other? Oscar responded sharply. Are you suggesting we choose the chairs randomly and trust luck? That doesn't make sense. Ellen, looking at Hannah, said, Maybe not randomly. What if we have to trust each other to choose the chairs? Everyone picks a chair based on their instincts. There was a moment of hesitation, but time was running out. The voice started the countdown. You have 2 minutes to choose your chairs. If time runs out and you haven't sat down, the consequences will be fatal. James shouted, All right. No time for arguing. Everyone pick a chair. But if something happens, remember, we're all in this together. One by one, they slowly sat down in the chairs. James took the first, Ellen the second, Oscar the third, Hannah the fourth, and Megan the fifth. The tension in the room was suffocating, as if the entire room had stopped breathing. Megan spoke, her voice trembling. What will happen now? Were we right? Suddenly, the lights went out completely, and the room was swallowed by darkness. Then, a loud, sharp whistle was heard, followed by the ground shaking beneath them. When the lights returned, everyone sat in their chairs, looking at each other. But Oscar was screaming, jumping from his chair. The ground beneath his chair had opened, and something fell from under the table, a small box containing a note. James grabbed the note and read it aloud. Trust is the key, but caution saves lives. You chose the wrong chair, but you are still alive. Prepare for the next phase. Ellen sighed in relief. Thank goodness no one was hurt. But what does this mean? Was this just a psychological test? James, staring at the table, answered, I think they want us to start doubting. They want to break our unity. Hannah said, We need to stick together. This game isn't just about surviving, it's about cooperation. If we lose trust, we'll lose. At that moment, another door opened in the room, completely dark. The voice said, You've passed this phase, but the hard times have not yet begun. Are you ready to make sacrifices? Oscar, clenching his fist in anger, said, If they think we'll back down, they're wrong. We'll finish this game and walk out alive. They all looked at the open door, then at each other. They had no choice but to continue. They took their first steps toward the darkness again, knowing that what lay ahead would be even more dangerous. When they entered the next room, they found themselves facing a large table with 4 glass cups, each filled with a clear liquid. In the corner, a note read, "4 cups. 3 are safe, and 1 is lethal. Each of you must drink. You cannot avoid it." They stood in silence, staring at the cups before them. Fear was gripping them, but James, despite his unease, was the one to break the silence. "We have to play their game. There's no other choice." They all looked at the cups, and the time was running out. Doubt began to settle in as they began to question each other, and tension was rising. Hannah said cautiously, "If one of these cups is lethal, what happens once we drink? How do we know we survived?" James answered coldly, "If we don't drink, we'll all die here. But if we do, we can only hope the choice is the right one." One by one, they made their choices, but before they drank, the voice over the speakers came again. "You have 1 minute. If you don't drink, the room will close, and you will all perish." James decided to drink first. Then Ellen chose the next cup, and finally, it was Hannah's turn. But when she drank, she suddenly coughed violently and collapsed onto the floor. Megan screamed. "Hannah!" knew. As Hannah fell, everyone stood still in shock, realizing that one of them had paid the price for the wrong choice. There were only 3 of them left now, and the atmosphere had grown more dangerous. The voice echoed once more. "Another loss. This is the game." They continued through dark hallways until they entered a new room. It was freezing cold, and the metal floor creaked with every step they took. In the center of the room was an old wooden chair surrounded by screens showing fragmented footage of everything that had happened so far, including Hannah's last moments and the body in the first room. Ellen whispered, trying to ignore the disturbing images. "He's watching us all the time, enjoying what he sees." Suddenly, the screen flashed with an image of Hannah dead, and they heard her voice scream throughout the room. "Why did you leave me? You could have saved me." Megan shuddered and fell to her knees, clutching her head and crying. "I can't take this anymore." But James grabbed her hand and said firmly, "Megan, this is what he wants us to feel. We have to keep going. If we give up now, we'll all die." Before they could continue, another message appeared on the screens, written in bold letters. "At this stage, you must betray or be betrayed. The decision is yours." In the corner, a small door opened, revealing a metal cart carrying 3 weapons, a dagger, an empty gun, and a rope. Beside the cart was a note that read, "Only 2 of you can move forward. 1 of you must stay behind. The decision is yours, but time is limited. If you don't choose, the room will lock you all in." Megan, still crying, shouted, "No, I won't kill anyone. I'm not a killer." But James, who was trying to keep his composure, said coldly, "This is just another test. They want us to turn on each other. But if we don't do anything, we'll all die." Ellen stood there, staring at the weapons, and said, "Is this the goal? To kill each other? To become like the body we saw in the first room?" As they argued, a countdown began to appear on the screens. 5 minutes remaining. James spoke more firmly. We won't die here. If we have to choose, let's do it wisely. But suddenly, Megan grabbed the dagger and pointed it at Ellen, screaming, I want out of here. I can't take this anymore. I'll do whatever I have to. Ellen stepped back and raised her hands in defense, saying, Megan, stop. This isn't you. This place is driving you mad. Before Megan could attack, James intervened, grabbing her wrist forcefully, causing the dagger to fall from her hand. Megan screamed in fury. You can't stop me. I don't want to die here. James looked at both women and said, Listen to me. We're all scared, but we need to find a way to survive without killing each other. Ellen, who was trying to regain her composure, said, There's another way. If we cooperate, maybe we can deceive him. The voice came again, but this time it was more mocking. Deceive me? You fools. Every step has been planned. There is no escape from this end. But James decided not to give up. He grabbed the rope and said, If we're going to stay here, let's give him what he wants, a death scene. But not real death. They all looked at him confused, but he quickly explained the plan. One person would tie themselves with the rope and pretend to be dead while the other two would move through the door. Ellen agreed to the plan, but Megan was still hesitant. She said, And if it doesn't work? What if we all end up dead? James answered her, If we don't try, we'll definitely die. But if we try, we might have a chance. James took steady steps toward the table and tied the rope around his waist securely while signaling to Ellen and Megan to make the scene look realistic. He spoke in a calm voice. You need to pretend to fight. I'll be the victim. If the door opens, run immediately. Ellen, who had been silently crying, looked at him and said, James, if this plan fails, I'm sorry for everything. He smiled faintly and said, It's okay. We won't lose anything more than what we've already lost. Megan and Ellen started pretending to argue, pushing James toward the chair. Ellen tied the rope around his neck, and he screamed loudly, pretending to choke. The room became eerily quiet. Their breaths were shallow, and their eyes were glued to the screens. Then, after a heavy moment of waiting, the door in the corner slowly opened, revealing a brightly lit hallway. Ellen whispered, We did it. The door opened. Megan, still hesitating, said, But do we leave him here? What if we need him later? James slowly opened his eyes and spoke weakly. Don't think about me. Though, if you continue, there may be a chance to end all of this madness. With tears in their eyes, Ellen and Megan ran toward the door, leaving James behind. They entered the last hallway, which led them to a wide room filled with screens showing all the events that had happened. In the middle of the room, there was a swivel chair, and a man in a black mask was sitting, watching them quietly. His voice was deep and mocking. Congratulations, you've reached the end. But this is not the final test. Ellen shouted angrily. Who are you? Why are you doing this to us? What do you want? The man stood up slowly and replied, I am not important. What matters is that you're now in a position to decide your fate. The game was a test of trust, fear, and the ability to make tough decisions. He pointed to a table in the middle of the room where there were two large buttons, one red, the other blue. The red means the end. Press it, and everything stops. But only one of you will survive. The blue saves everyone, including James, but it might send you back to square one. The decision is yours. Megan, who was having a nervous breakdown, said, "This is crazy. I don't want to go back to this nightmare." Ellen, who was trying to stay calm, said, "But if we press red, we'll kill James." "We can't do that." The man stood next to the table and said, "You have 1 minute. If you don't choose, the room will close, and you'll stay here forever." Ellen looked at Megan and said, "We have to choose blue. We have to try to save everyone. James risked his life for us." Megan, feeling desperate and scared, said, "And what if it doesn't work? What if we go through this again?" As the countdown neared its end, Ellen rushed forward and pressed the blue button with all her strength. The room immediately went dark, and they heard a voice. "The choice has been made." When the lights returned, Ellen and Megan found themselves back in the same room where everything had started, with James lying on the floor, but he was breathing slowly. The body they had seen earlier was gone, and there were no more screens or loudspeakers. Ellen whispered, "Is it over? Are we alive?" James slowly opened his eyes and said, "I think we made it, or maybe we're in a new phase." Before they could think further, the final door in the room opened, leading them to the cold, dark street outside the hotel. The cold air hit their faces, and everything was eerily quiet. Megan looked up at the sky and said, "Finally, we're free." But as they walked away, a message appeared on the wall behind them in bright letters. "You have passed the test. But the game is not over yet.